Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host, Joe Staszak, my co-host, Steve, and Johnny Kallas. Probably the last full-on, full-force football podcast for a while. Super Bowl 60 in the books. And it went to Seattle, and it wasn't much of a game. And it was closer probably than the score indicated until the fourth quarter when things got a little loose. Final score 29-13. Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, the MVP for the game. Seattle had 134 yards rushing. Had a touchdown call back. Anyone who had the over, not happy about that, but the game stayed under, and Seattle covered the number. Johnny, we'll start with you. I'm sorry, brah. Didn't work out for the team, but it was had to be a frustrating game because Drake May just never really seemed to, get going. And then after the first quarter, when Seattle just kept coming, and I think 6 of the first 7 drives resulted in punts for the Patriots. When he did let go of the ball, a lot of throws behind guys. He just didn't seem into a flow. A couple passes in the fourth quarter, one to Mac Hollins, and then another Mac Hollins. I don't know how he completed the first one. It was between 5 guys,
Yeah.
and you know which one I'm talking about. Right before the touchdown one, I was how do you complete that? And he was missing screen passes and whatever. But he got sacked 6 times. Will Campbell had some problems on the offensive line, as did the entire offensive line. 3 turnovers, all in the second half. Again, it was a game technically until the fourth quarter. Was 9-0 at the half. Johnny, your overall thoughts on what you saw and how, as someone who did have skin in the game and can see it objectively, it seemed like that the field was pretty much tilted Seattle's way most of the game.
Hopefully, I can see things objectively. I may need to revisit my analysis of future Patriots games because I think a lot of my analysis, if applied the other way around, would have been correct, but I applied it to the wrong team. I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I also have to say, a couple weeks ago, I mocked Steve on our very podcast when he questioned whether or not on the QB hierarchy remaining that Sam Darnold should maybe be listed higher than Drake May, and I mocked him relentlessly. Drake May, borderline MVP, lost by 1 vote. But I have to say in this one, while Sam Darnold looked average, Drake May looked bad. And there's a big difference between average and bad, which we'll get to. I do think, like I said, maybe I drank the Patriots Kool-Aid a little bit. They really played. I think Tom Curran, actually, who's been writing about New England for 30 years now, summed it up right. They played young, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And there's a lot of questions. Where does the blame go? Does it go to Drake May? Does it go to Josh McDaniels? Does it go to the offensive line? A lot of people in New England are blaming the offensive line, and they deserve their fair share of blame. But I give a lot of the blame to Drake May, man. I mean, these Super Bowls against defenses like this are not easy. They shouldn't be easy, and I thought he'd be able to rise to the occasion at times. And there were times where he held on to the ball too long. 6 sacks, not all of those were on the offensive line. Mike McDonald called a great game plan. It wasn't just that the Seahawks front 4 got after them, which they did, but he's bringing Devin Witherspoon, who, by the way, is a former Fighting Illini, may I add. There's one saving grace out of all this. On, a secondary blitz 6 times, got there twice. And there's just no ability either to shift protection or to be able to read that, to have a hot route. And I put that ultimately on the quarterback. Maybe you can put it on Josh McDaniels for not having him prepared, but I do put that ultimately on the quarterback to not make those reads, to not make those quick decisions. And then there were sometimes guys open. Hunter Henry at one point, Kayshon Boutte at another, and he's just missing guys. And then there's a few different plays to get to. But it's 19-7 in the fourth, and they finally have a little bit momentum. They score the touchdown to Mac Hollins, and then they get a quick punt. And by the way, the Patriots defense, I thought they were really good. I don't think they were great. They had a hard time containing Walker, especially for one drive. They didn't get that turnover, which they almost did early, but Christian Gonzalez, Craig Woodson, I actually thought they played, all things considered, pretty well, considering the amount of pressure that was put on them. But they get the ball back to May. And May misses Austin Hooper on what would have been a 35-yard completion. Tries to throw into triple coverage to Mac Hollins, who thankfully breaks it up. Then has a real nice scramble up the middle for a good 15, 20 yards. And then inexplicably, down 12, but still 9.5 minutes to go on
Plenty
second
of
and
time,
three,
right?
close to
Plenty of time.
midfield. All you need to do there, man, it doesn't matter how long it takes to score. You can take 5 minutes to score a touchdown. Just put a
Totally.
little bit of pressure on Darnold, make them feel the heat just a little bit, and you don't know what'll happen. But I saw something after that. He made the right read. He just made a horrible throw. I don't know. I don't know if that could be the
He
right read.
airmailed. Yeah, I didn't know where he was throwing.
He was apparently throwing a Williams on the deep cross, but he missed him by like 20 yards. And just an unnecessary force. And it cleared that the moment, and look, was it a combination of all the pressure that he faced throughout the game? Maybe, but this is the Super Bowl, man. You got to make these plays. I think he will grow up, but as we said, you never know when you'll be back here. And he just makes the worst throw of the game right to the Seattle secondary. So it's a few other points I want to make, but I'll turn it over to Steve. Just a very disappointing effort, and frustrating because, like I said, you don't know when you're getting back.
Steve,
Well,
you've been talking up the Seahawks for a while, and I never really got fully on board until I watched them in the playoffs, and since the San Francisco 13-3 game, I think since that crazy 2-point conversion that really flipped things in that game against the Rams a few weeks ago, they've been somewhat, untouchable. They've been, if you look over the course of a game, I mean, there's some close moments, but they really rose to the top. And you were on them a while ago.
the Seahawks trailed in the playoffs, so they played 3 games, right? Because they had to buy. They were behind 90 seconds in all those 3 games combined. But what I noticed right away, I think Johnny and I talked about it. Uh, Seattle with that incredible front four, they blitzed early and often right from the get-go. It was like what I was hoping the Patriots were going to do, and they got to the quarterback. And you can argue all day, they're going to have to beef up their offensive line. Yeah, obviously. But I think Drake May showed us in a bunch of games, Johnny, that he's not quite there of getting rid of the ball quickly or throwing it away, getting away from a sack. And what I noticed, and look, Drake May, he's a real good athlete. He's not an elite athlete. He couldn't run away from these guys. That sack he took early, he couldn't get away. And if he could have gotten away, he might have, made some yardage. He had 1 or 2 runs maybe the whole game. I don't think you could really have relied on that. These guys are not just big and strong, they're athletic, and within being athletic, I mean they're fast. All these guys look like they could run guys down and did. So, and also the one the one thing I'll give Sam Darnold credit for, because I thought it was big in the game, 2 or 3 times he was dead on arrival and somehow within the pocket. He's not a great runner. He had that one real good one, of course, but within the pocket, he was able to take that little sidestep. I don't know if he's watching whoever, Brady film or whoever, but just that little one step to the side at least 2 times, maybe 3, where it looked like a sure sack. It was a free runner to him. Having said all that, early on, as Johnny said, even the first pass he threw, it was like the Patriots were being offensive, like they were being offensive on defense, like they were against the greatest show on turf in that very first one, where they were aggressive. And a couple of those balls bounced off their hands. Not that they were going to win this game; they were totally outplayed. But a few balls bounced off hands, and you're going, "Oh, if the guy was only there, oh, it was 2 feet away." Or things just didn't go their way early, and because of that, I think it just kind of set the tone for the game. I thought the defense was great, certainly in the first half to be down 9-0. And the one thing I will say about when I thought it still could have been a game, Mac Hollins makes that 35-yard TD catch, makes it 19-6. I thought they should have gone for 2. It turned out not to matter. But if you go for 2 there, you're down 11.
Down 11. We all
You
thought the
don't
same
need.
thing. And then when you texted us, said, watch, he's asking why they didn't go for 2, and none of us could figure it out.
But I do give Mike McDonald. I was a big proponent of, the coach has won 3 Super Bowls with the Patriots on the field. He knows the drill. And of course, offensively, I mean, when they came out for the third quarter, this is when I thought it was over, Johnny. They came out for the third quarter, and there was nothing new there. There was nothing new there.
Looked
I
like
don't think you
looked
give
like the
it.
same as it did, yeah, in the first
I
half.
don't think you give it to Henderson up the middle. Henderson went around end once and got 9 yards.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's Walker, and I'm not saying their offense could do that to this defense, but there seemed to be no outside. I think I sent Johnny a text. Are there any tight ends playing for the Patriots? I thought they'd be big ones. He's right about that. Hooper wide open. Oh my goodness.
On the in the fourth quarter, right, wide open. He
Yeah,
snuck out. He snuck out, and no one. I think it was a blown coverage. Just overthrew him.
and I think there was maybe one completion to Henry. I'm not even sure of that, but the one time when he was real open, he threw it behind Henry, so it's
Yep.
hard to catch.
On third down.
And what he lost the most, what Drake May lost the most, I mean, he really has to work on his pocket presence to just have an understanding. He doesn't seem. I mean, we talked about this all during the playoffs, Johnny. He just look. Don't forget, we said last week what happened. He had 5 sacks in every game. Did you think they weren't going to get 5 sacks?
No, I just thought they'd be able
Six,
to hit
six
some.
last night, just if you're keeping score.
Right. No, and that's an all-time record. Not that I care about all-time record for sacks, but I'm saying all of these three good to really, really good defenses he played against, they all sacked him 5 times.
Great defenses. Great defenses.
They,
Not
they,
good,
they
really
were.
good. Great.
And John, let me throw this question out because he was runner-up MVP and came very close to taking that award home. And people would talk about the game leading up to it, and they said, well, there was a blizzard in Denver second half, and they kind of played very conservatively. He did Vrabel, and he should have. And then in the Houston game, I know he dribbled the ball all over the field, but and got lucky that C.J. Stroud threw a pick every other play. But it was another mess of a game, so you couldn't really tell what was going on with Drake May. But people were like, he hasn't played great. I said those weather games were awful. He's 23 years old. He got a great regular season, but pretty good weather conditions last night. I know a great defense, but I didn't see the Drake May that was really the runner-up MVP last night. And I'm wondering, was the moment too big, combined with some other things last night, combined with pressure? I always would say pressure perceived is pressure achieved. So even when he wasn't getting pressure, I think he felt it and did things just a little quicker than he had to. Did you see that, or am I off on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I think the contrast between the below averages and the great defenses in the NFL is so stark. I mean, I think they had a historically easy schedule. And then I think the question that everyone had to grapple with, and it was hard to gauge, as I think we all talked about before this game, is their ineffectiveness on offense the last couple of weeks due to them facing great defenses and not having an answer, or is it due to factors like weather, et cetera? And if you give them 2 weeks to prepare, they will have an answer. And we all said, I think, all pick the Patriots, but that'll be a low-scoring game, which it was until it kind of blew open on the fourth quarter. But they just didn't have an answer. And Steve's totally right. He needs to be able to make decisions quicker. You're not going to have 3 seconds to make decisions against really good teams. Do I expect Drake May to be lights out against below average defenses next year? Yeah, I think he's going to be lights out. They're going to have a much tougher schedule. And the question is, how do you play against those much better opponents? And you're right, Joe. Is it I don't think Drake May looked scared necessarily before the game. I don't think the moment got to him. I think the pressure got to him, and I think he didn't have an answer, and then he panicked, which was evident throughout the second half.
Yeah, I agree with that. Steve, do you think they got it right? I mean, I don't really care about individual awards, but technically, not the QBR that Johnny likes and I think is more legit. But I don't know how Drake May had a better quarterback rating than Sam Darnold. Darnold didn't make any mistakes and didn't throw a pick in the playoffs. I mean, and he didn't even look overly, jacked up to get the monkey off the back. Seeing the ghost, and I don't know why we're still talking about that 5 years later or whatever, but.
May saw the ghost. I think May saw the ghost.
May saw the ghost, I think. Exactly, May saw the ghost. What did you think of Sam Darnold last night? He was only 50% completion percentage. Some people were texting me, he's terrible. I hosted a party, so half the time I was running around, but thought he played well enough to win. And, he had that touchdown pass to his tight end in the fourth quarter. And, I know that Walker created some drives that allowed Jason Myers to almost, win the MVP. It's 16 points in the game, but they gave it to Walker. Walker would have clearly wanted going away if that touchdown would have counted. What did you think of who they gave the MVP to?
Oh, I think he should have got it. I mean, he had those early runs, 29 and 30-yard runs on the same drive. The defense held them all to field goals in the first half. But I'll say it again, when they come out to start the third quarter and go nowhere, 3-and-out, you would have thought, the Patriots, great for second half adjustments. and nothing happened. And then I think they went down and got a field goal to make it 12-0. So I think a lot of the pressure was taken off Sam Darnold again. I give him all the credit in the world for those three plays where he just sidestepped, where you thought this is free runners. It's almost
Milton
like the free
Williams.
runners,
Yeah.
just a split second before they get there, should maybe slow down because the guy's going somewhere. And you want to be able to go with him somewhere. But I'd say he was a good game manager in that game. That's what he was. Did he make any really big throws? He probably made, a couple. The touchdown was wide open. The guy was all by himself.
He missed a couple too.
He
Huh?
missed a
I mean,
couple.
he
He did.
missed JSN on what would have been a 90 plus. I know he was under some pressure. JSN, by the way, the Patriots did a really good job against him, except he was open and he was out for a little bit, but they still did a good job. He was open for a potential 90 plus yard touchdown. Same with Shaheed. I thought Darnold, I'm sorry to cut you off, Steve, I'll get back to, but
Uh,
I thought Darnold was pretty average. But like I said, average is a lot better than bad. He didn't turn the ball over. He tried a couple times. Christian Gonzalez could have saved three
He
points. He
was
was really bad
unbelievable.
at
Christian
that.
Gonzalez was unbelievable last night.
Gonzalez was overall awesome, and they should lock him up.
well, we don't forget we heard how Mims ran right by him. As much as I like Mina Kimes, Mims ran
No,
right by him. But and then what an incredible play he made in the end zone, running
he,
with Shaheed. Right? I
Uh,
mean,
yeah, on the deep sort of post pattern. I thought overall, yeah, Gonzalez and I thought the secondary played great. I think Darnold missed a couple of those, but he never turned the ball over. He managed the game. Milton Williams came unblocked. You're totally right, Steve. He got to him once, but Darnold was able to
right?
get out of it twice. I,
Exactly.
I think the only thing I'll say quickly about Kenneth Walker, I thought Walker was really good overall. To me, he kind of had one big drive that led him to 3 points. At the time, 3 points was big. He had back-to-back 30-yard runs. Outside of that 25 for 75, I thought New England, outside of that drive, did a good job against him. But those 3 points were huge when they happened.
Do you think other teams in the NFC, like maybe the Rams, if they had did they look at that and go, "Wow, we left the ring on the table because we could have gone up against Drake May, and if we put any kind of pressure on them like other teams did, we'd probably be having a parade or getting ready for a parade."
Yeah, but Joe, I don't think the Rams had that kind of defense. If you
No,
had to
they
rank
didn't.
them,
They didn't.
if you rank them against all the defenses that the Patriots played against in the playoffs, I think they'd be low with weaknesses,
Yeah.
and it would have been a different deal, maybe.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I don't know if their line
you never know, right?
they have a good defensive line. Could they have run over Campbell on the left side? They never quite corrected that. They had the tight ends, chip once in a while, which we talked about, but I think this defense is head and shoulders above all the other defenses we saw. And I'll say it again. I thought it was because they blitzed early and often, and their reputation is what? We get there with four. Now they
Yep.
got there with four a few times, don't get me wrong. But Weatherspoon coming off from 10 yards out, full speed ahead,
Six
six
times.
times, as Johnny said.
Yeah.
So he had four tackles, one sack, and three QB hits. I mean, the QB hits when you're a little, I'll say, nervous. The QB hits are almost as good as a sack at times.
Sure,
And
they
uh,
are.
and
More
when it was
pressure.
still a game, and I thought dreaming maybe that it was still a game, he made that one horrific throw. And I don't think there was a Patriot within 5 yards of that throw. The guy coming across they didn't throw to the tight ends early, which I thought they would. I talked with Johnnie all during the first half about slants. There were no slants till the game was over. I mean, the reason you'll look at this 10, 20, 30 years from now when somebody didn't watch the game and they'll look at Drake May and, well, he wasn't really that bad. But all the slants came in when they were giving them slants at the end. I thought he should have just been slinging it, Johnny. I know one final play he did go for all of it, but you might as well just throw it as far as you can throw it and just get your best guy there and tell him you're going to throw it as far as you can throw it. Um, because these little dinks and dunks for 10 yards did nothing but give you, I guess, a better Q quarterback rating or completion rating. But I think he knows. I think you saw him after the game. I mean, he was really shaken up, but he's got some big improvements to do on basic how to be a great quarterback skills. He's got incredible skills. He can throw it. But his accuracy yesterday was terrible. You can tell me because he was under pressure the whole time. But he had some short ones that weren't even that far, including tight ends over the middle. Diggs that one time was wide open on the right side.
Yep.
But again, when they're coming down on you every play like they were, It's hard. It's easy to say, "Oh yeah, you should have seen that guy," but it's a different deal, obviously, when you're dealing with that kind of defense.
Johnny, I know he's coming off a major injury, but Stephon Diggs was one of the premier receivers in the league for the last decade, maybe not in the last couple of years. And I know he may have had some problems in Buffalo with Josh Allen, his relationship, but where was he last time? Besides getting pushed out of bounds and causing a little kerfuffle, 3 catches, 37 yards. To me, like, is Diggs way past his prime, or is he the number 3 receiver? Like, why not Stephon Diggs?
No, that's a big question, and there should be some film watch to figure that out because Seattle was playing pretty much zone the whole game, and Diggs is known for being able to get open on his own. So I'm not sure how they were not able to. I don't know if they were shifting coverage over to him, but it was really disappointing to see how quiet he was. I will say, whatever happened on the sideline there, I kind of like the refs let them play. I won't complain about that. Diggs took a punch, and they somehow, I don't know how the heck they didn't. Now
Right.
that they did actually answer that, then came the back-to-back plays to Matt Collins for their only like impressive drive of the night. But I don't know exactly what happened. But no, it was really disappointing to see, and the big gain for Diggs came in garbage time. Him not, I don't know if it, now Steve said there was one time where May sped up his clock too much because he faced a little bit of pressure and Diggs was wide open on a crosser and he just didn't get it to him. I mean, he was wide open by 10 yards. Um, but overall, for some reason, they just weren't able to connect. I expect Diggs to be back next year. And just really quickly, New England, I think they need some offensive line help, and they could use another pass catcher, and they have some free agency cap space to do it. But a big question for them, they invested a number 4 overall pick in Will Campbell. You expect those guys to come in and be really good from the get-go. Think Tristan Wirfs, I think he was a 13th pick overall for the Bucks back in 2020. Came in and he was great from the get-go, was a big reason why they won the Super Bowl that year. Will Campbell doesn't look like a left tackle, and there were some critiques on him. So the question is, can he be left tackle? Do you need to shift him into guard and go get you a left tackle? But there's some big questions about Will Campbell that'll be coming up this offseason.
Hey,
What
Joe, if
year?
I
What?
could also say on Jason Myers, I know some people were talking about him as the possible MVP because he had 17 points, the most by anybody ever in a Super Bowl. Or, yeah, I guess, well, maybe by a kicker. But he was 5 for 5, but there were no field goals over 41 yards. I'm not knocking that. You can only kick what you go out to kick, but they drove the ball so well, pretty deep, So when you make 5 field goals, and the 2 longest ones were 41 yards, I don't think that's enough to make you the MVP. Plus, the game would have to be closer in my mind.
Will Campbell is what year?
He's a rookie.
He's a rookie, I thought, right? When they took him with the 4th pick.
Yep. LSU.
Um, Buddy of mine who's like the Bizarro Johnny Kallas. He's a big New England guy. He still complains. I think that they beat Buffalo at the end of the year last year in a game they didn't need to win, and it cost them a few slots. Or was that the year before? But either way, might have been the year before because he was talking about taking Marvin Harrison Jr. there. Did they cost themselves in the last year or two with winning a game or two late?
Uh,
The
yeah.
Giants? The Giants? Is that what you're asking?
I know. So I knew that would get Steve.
Never mind. Never mind.
Look, like I said, man, I think you take an offensive tackle. I look, and maybe they got the pick wrong, but offensive tackles can win you Super Bowls,
Yeah,
man.
no, they can. They
They're not
absolutely.
sexy picks, especially in the top 10, but they can win you Super Bowls. And I'm not saying that Will Campbell's a bust already because he was pretty good for most of the year and then kind of came back from an injury and he's been pretty bad and he got exposed against really good pass rushers. But once again, you see him just physically and he doesn't look like a left tackle. Now, so is he going to become a really good left guard or can they figure it out? That's a big question, but remains to be seen.
I swear, speaking of speaking goes, I don't know if you saw Bad Bunny. One of his right hand men just looked exactly like Jared Verse. I thought it was a side hustle of his or something. I'm like, that's Jared Verse right there. Anyway, I'm looking forward to next year. I mean, Seattle. I know that Vegas always takes the winner, and it's like they're the favorites next year. And the favorite, they never win because it's hard to repeat Super Bowls. But what are we looking at next year, Steve, in terms of coming out of the NFC? Can the Eagles come back with all their changes? Is Seattle? To me, they still look like the team to beat. And how bad is Minnesota? I know they whacked their GM once they made the Super Bowl, and it might be directly related to the Sam Darnold thing. But how much are they, crying about not signing Sam Darnold?
Well, it's got to be directly. I mean, look, Minnesota has a pretty good defense, and he won 14 games the year before. And I thought it was partly a money thing, right? Because he's getting a real number now. And they wanted to go with J.J. McCarthy. They thought he'd be good. Number one, he wasn't that good. Number two, he gets injured too much. So that's like two negatives already. Will he get better? Will they get better? I don't know. And then the NFC, I don't know. It looks to me uh, it's still like the Rams and Seattle to start. They seem to be head and shoulders. And I think it's going to be very tough for the Patriots because they're not going to
They
have
got
that
stuff scheduled.
schedule, and no, and they're not going to sneak up on anybody now.
But
They
they
beat
did win.
Buffalo.
They did beat the Chargers. They beat the Texans, and they beat the Broncos on the
Oh no,
road.
no, I mean during the regular
No,
season,
I
it
understand, but they
was
still,
like, oh yeah, they did
when
beat
they
the
got to
Bills
the
early, so
playoffs, they
you
did
were like,
enough to win. Yeah.
when you see them beat the Bills early, you're like, and the Bills were 4-0 when they beat them. You're like, ooh, maybe there's something here. I don't think we thought it was what it became. So you do give them credit going all the way, but if you saw the coach afterwards, Vrabel was like, yeah, this is great that we got here and it's a great season, et cetera. And he had a long 30-second talk after when he said, but they have to deal with this kind of stuff. And Johnny's right. Are they going to stick with this left tackle? Does a left tackle go from rookie year where he's okay, but then is just the guy they want to run over in the playoffs? Again, all good defenses. Can they move him to guard and get a left tackle? Because it is left tackle is the most important I don't want to call them skill positions, but it's the most important line position in my mind, the left tackle for the offense. And they're going to have to do something about that, I think. I don't think they can expect them. John, you think there's any chance he grows into a top left tackle next year? I don't think so.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. The only other name I want to throw out there for yesterday is Michael Dixon. Man, what a punting performance. That's the Seattle punter that he put on display. I mean, if I would think about him as much as Jason Myers if you're thinking about a special teams MVP. I don't know what the heck Marcus Jones is doing not catching some of these shorter punts. I mean,
Right. What are you
Jones,
doing? Yeah,
and of course, the one that Jones got that he kind of broke comes back for a penalty. So
of course.
special teams definitely was in, to put it mildly, Seattle's favor. Look, I think we always love the Super Bowl team coming off the Super Bowl, especially when it's a defensive performance like that. That happens every year. And there's no reason not to like Seattle. They have the most complete defense and the best defensive play caller in football. You have to give Mike McDonald that. That's a tough division, man. I mean, they're going to be fighting for their lives like they did this year, just in that division. That Super Bowl's at SoFi. I think Stafford's coming back just to run it back one final time. The 49ers are still lurking. That's a tough division, and that's going to be tough to just repeat as division champions, never mind Super Bowl champions next year.
From a local angle, Milton Williams had a couple sacks last year. He got paid in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Had one yesterday. I don't know if anybody has done that for two different teams back-to-back years. But what did you think about Milton Williams yesterday and overall this year?
Oh, love Milton Williams. And he was out for a little bit, and their defense took it to another level once he got back late in the season through the postseason. Steve's right. He came free on a couple, and Darnold showed some escapability that was pretty impressive yesterday. But Williams did get a sack. He generated some interior pressure. I can't put it. I think, a lot of times those Super Bowl players get overpaid. I don't think that's the case, at least in year one in Milton Williams. They got everything they paid for this year.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of Howie love, but that went south this year, and everyone's ripping because we're watching Milt Williams and maybe Mekhi Becton. They let go, and I know he didn't play great in San Diego, or L.A., but here he did. Maybe now Jeff Stoutland's out. Like there's such a mess from last year when, like you said, the Super Bowl team, the winner gets a lot of love, and they think everything's going to be, Shangri-La next year. Eagles are a mess right now. They were dysfunctional when they won. The first article I wrote, this is the most successful dysfunctional team, and they win the Super Bowl. And I never strayed from that because they're noisy, and this guy's complaining, and that guy wants the ball more, and the head coach is going into the stands yelling at his fans. It's just a mess. Winning masks all that. Once you peel the winning Band-Aid off, then it's a legitimate mess. But anyway, Steve, was that the greatest redemption story in terms of a player going? First of all, he played for his fifth team, winning a Super Bowl, and how he played. I just remember that first pass he threw in the NFL across the field. Detroit ran it back for a touchdown, and when he was with the Jets, he saw a ghost. He went to Carolina, he wasn't good. Went to San Francisco as a backup. Maybe people say that he learned under the auspices of Kyle Shanahan. Maybe turned him around and went to Minnesota. Good coaching staff there. I mean, the redemption story of Sam Darnold is pretty impressive.
It's incredible. First guy ever to win the Super Bowl with his fifth team or later,
Right.
which means something because usually when you think five teams in 8 years or
Bounced
whatever it
around. You're a
was.
journeyman. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But, he said they lifted his confidence. He still had confidence. His parents were confident in him. And you got to give him credit. He had a heck of a year. Yesterday, again, I thought things could have gone wrong pretty early. First pass he threw, and then there were a couple deflections. And you're sitting there going, if the guy was on this side, it would be an interception. The only thing would it be a pick six? But, that's the way the ball bounces, as they say, or in the air. And but yeah, I think it's one of the great redemption stories of all time because he was the one who said, "I'm seeing ghosts." They said it too much that he's 0-4 against the Patriots. I mean, he's playing with the Jets when they're horrific and he's horrific. So I don't think that was of any moment. Although I did see one stat for Seattle when they got more than one sack in a game, which was what almost every game, they were 13-0. So I don't know when they didn't get sacks in those other games. Maybe someone should get the film on that. But I assure you, they'll have a really good left tackle whoever held them to just one sack. But yeah, no, Sam Darnold. I guess you couldn't really call him the comeback player of the year because he won 14 games last year. But long term, over a span of time, yeah, it's one of the great redemptions, maybe the greatest redemption ever.
Well, in back-to-back years, what did he win now? 17 this year, 31 games, really, in 2 years? That's pretty good. that's pretty good. Folks, we appreciate you watching all year. Guys, any final thoughts?
No, tough game, but you never know when you'll be back. But excited for the future in New England. And yeah, just quickly on Darnold, man, for this game to happen against New England, seeing ghosts against New England. And look, he didn't make mistakes, and that's what was called for with this kind of defense. That's what was called for. A lot of times as a quarterback, especially watching Tom Brady all those years, sometimes what's called for is throwing 465 yards and winning in overtime. Sometimes what's called for is not turning the ball over, having a couple clutch throws. Sam Darnold did what was called for. You got to give him credit.
I agree. I think in huge games, it's not the team or quarterback who makes the biggest plays. The guy who makes the fewest mistakes, and that was Sam Darnold yesterday. Well deserved. Seattle, maybe a little bit of an exorcism. I know they showed the Malcolm Butler play 100 times leading up to the. I had to have killed Seattle all week, all 2 weeks watching that. Good stuff, fellas. You can catch Steve's stuff on his daily Facebook forum page. Speaking of sports, we're Steve Kallas, and you can catch this podcast on YouTube. And all the audio outlets. You can follow me on Instagram at JoeStaszak4799 or on X Twitter at JoeStaszak975. Johnny, Steve, we appreciate it, guys. Enjoyed this season more than you will ever know. We appreciate you folks for watching, and we'll catch you next time, guys.
Thanks, fellas. We're still going to show that Malcolm Butler play, though. That's not going to stop.
It's not going to go. Great stuff. All right, see you guys. Have a good one. Thanks, folks, and we'll talk to you next week.